Hello. Welcome, guys. Sorry we're running a little bit late. We had a new addition, which is Kriken, and hopefully he will be funny. Ha 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 ha. Because we ain't. In all seriousness, I'm happy Kriken have decided to take part this week. I asked him last week, I believe, and he was unable to. And as I say, as his community channel, the more the merrier. Someone in chat doesn't trust the new guy.
What that's not okay.
So, this week I think we are discussing the PlayStation Classic. First, I should introduce everyone. I'm Pedz. We've got Jazzem.
Hello.
Doomspoon there, or the Doomspoon.
Hello.
And Kriken SD. No, DS.
Yeah, definitely.
Like Cricket Super Show.
Kriken standard definition.
Wow.
My bad.
Someone needs to make a Kriken HD account now.
He does like the rock sign with his hand while like chanting 480p over and over again.
I'll change it to Jazzem 30 frames per second.
Linear filtering.
Yeah, so I think we're talking about the PlayStation Classic this week. It's not going to just be why it's crap. But it's mainly, it is going to be why it's crap. But we also wanted to talk about, not so much why it's crap, like I said, but it's kind of like the nostalgic reasons as to why we wanted better from it, because I think all of us have had a PlayStation 1.
Yeah, I've had one.
I haven't, but I've played a lot of PS1 over friends' houses and after the fact on PSP and stuff.
That's close enough.
Yeah. It's not quite nostalgic, but still a fondness for the system.
Yeah. So I would say
we'll talk about
other things, but I don't really see the point, because last time we planned on talking about several different things other than the Game Awards, and we spent 2 hours talking about the Game Awards. So we'll see how things go. At the moment, it's the PlayStation Classic, and I'm going to start with Jazzem. Why is it crap?
So there's a Digital Foundry video that I'm probably going to be like loosely paraphrasing and quoting here, but okay, so we'll go back in time a bit. Like, this was announced a few months ago, right? This was there was the initial kind of Sony copying Nintendo again. I mean, Nintendo's not the first one to make a micro console like this, not by a long shot, but I think it's the first case of a major platform holder putting a fair amount of time and resources into it. Even if they are ultimately cheap products made to, they probably make their money back and then some on day one. But they've had success with the NES and SNES classics. Generally, they've been pretty well received. There were like a couple of visual issues with some aspects of the NES one, but they were pretty good, all things considered. So the first 5 games they announced were like Final Fantasy VII. That's an obvious one. I think Jumping Flash was one of them, which that kind of showed. That's where you start to see like, okay, there's quite a few early games on this. It was like Ridge Racer Time 4, Wild Arms, and Tekken 3. That's it. Yeah. So immediately the questions began. I was like, oh, what's going to be on this? And so everyone's imagining, is Crash going to be on there? Is Tomb Raider? Is Gran Turismo? You might notice that none of these games ended up on there. I was going
to say that was the trouble, was they announced those first few games, and I think everyone then thought this is going to go one of two ways. You either kind of go, well, that's some of those games, especially Final Fantasy, you expect that, and like Tekken, they kind of announced the better games instantly, and I think the general consensus was we're either going to get even better games, like this is just a taster ready for us to receive, like Crash and Spyro and everything, all the classics, or that's all they've got, and they need to announce these titles to sell the system, because they ain't got anything to follow it up, like.
Right, because this was quite curious. I'm trying to remember with this NES and SNES classics. If they did reveal their full lineup straight away, I feel like they certainly said more than 5 games.
Yeah.
Initially, so they kind of staggered this. I don't know if that was to kind of maintain interest.
The one I remember most was the SNES, and all I remember hearing about it was Star Fox 2. That was like they were smashing
Right.
that home.
Yeah.
I can't really remember them talking about any other game. They just went Star Fox 2, and that's all they needed to say, and everyone was like, "Yeah, we need to get this."
Well, that was astounding, yeah, because that was.
Yeah.
I mean, we've had like a pretty nearly complete prototype on that on the internet for years, but this was like them actually officially releasing this kind of legendarily unreleased but pretty much finished game. And
Yeah.
granted, it's it's remarkably ambitious. It doesn't run terribly well as you'd expect. It might take a bit of readjusting too, but it's still, that was still a pretty interesting, like really cool thing to throw in. And also the SNES Classic. Well, I think it could have had more games. I think it was just 21. It's pretty much gold, top to bottom.
Yeah.
But there's
It doesn't
also
run very well. I'm guessing that's on the hardware. Well, like through an emulator, like on a PC, I guess it would run okay, right?
Well, okay, so here's the thing. The NES and SNES Classics, they also use official emulators made by, well, it's a subdivision of Nintendo. It's one they bought
Of course,
up.
yeah.
I believe they're the same company. They're doing like the NES games on the Switch as well, which say what you want about that service, but like those actually look and run really well on there. That's for my money the best NES representation.
The emulation is flawless.
It's very good. They look much better than they did a Wii U, where they had like a dark blurry filter on them. But yeah, so what it comes down to is the NES and SNES ones. That kind of set a standard for what you'd expect from emulation. It came out along with like the rest of the games, and that's another thing we could get into with the PlayStation Classic. It came out, they were using PCSX rearmed. So this is like a fork of probably at this point like the most established PlayStation 1 emulator. Now, I've heard a few interesting arguments with this, because on the one hand, that is a bit lousy in a way. Like you would expect and hope you're going to get an official emulator, that you're going to get something that you're not going to be able to just get elsewhere. Because that's often the argument with these, right? It's like, well, why don't you get a Raspberry Pi? And then the counter argument to that is, well, at least you'll get you'll get the convenience, you'll get some sort of seal of quality, assuming you'll get a well-made emulator. The problem is with the Classic, it seems like this isn't a perfect arc of that emulator to begin with. It seems like it'd be one that's more conducive to the hardware the Classic is in a way. But it's not perfect in itself, and it just seems to have been optimized horribly. Again, referencing the Digital Foundry video, just nothing runs quite as it's meant to. Maybe not necessarily unplayably so, like in the best case scenarios, like you could probably enjoy a quick fix, but there's a mix of like games dropping frames when they're not meant to.
Do you think it was a case of rushing it out in time for Christmas, or do you just think the people who are contracted to do it, because it doesn't seem to be Sony in-house, does it? It's as you said yourself, they've had someone do it. Do you think it was rushed out for Christmas, or do you think they just genuinely done a shoddy job and it wouldn't have made much difference?
I think they tried pulling a Nintendo and failed horribly, because the difference is Nintendo, like especially the NES, the SNES was an easy kind of offshoot of the NES, because if you open the NES and the SNES Classics up, it's identical boards, same chipsets, everything is identical. So they just had to flash a different firmware on it and get it out there. But for the NES especially, and I guess for the emulators, they had to be developed. I guarantee you, Nintendo had spent a lot of like time R&D making sure this was going to work out the box perfectly, flawlessly, and then they decided to, because they again, the NES and the SNES Classics were announced quite late, and then they were out like a couple of months later, and but the difference is they did all the R&D before. They probably spent however long they did on it making sure it works, and then they had the luxury of saying, here's our new product, it's coming out in a couple of months, build the hype for it and get out. Where Sony, it kind of sounds like and looks like they announced it and then went, right, we've now got 2 months or however long it was to develop this, and then rushed it. Dude, that's the feeling I get out of this.
Yeah, the thing is, though, with the PlayStation Classic, I'm pretty sure after the NES Classic was announced and released, may have been the SNES Classic, but I'm sure it was the NES, that Sony actually did a poll of what would you like a PlayStation 1 Classic and what games would you like. I think that was the different polls they did.
Yeah.
If that's the case, they had a long time to try and sort something. If they were, because obviously they were thinking about doing it.
And who the fuck voted Rainbow Six on that poll?
That was horrible.
What was that?
That
We have our
was-
first
so
question,
actually-
guys. Monkey Man says, "Why is Xbox the best?" Winky face.
Well, what's going to be on the Xbox Classic? What do you want on the Xbox Classic, Chimps? You tell us. I want to hear that. But yeah, I think you made very good points there too. And the admittedly probably very flawed analogy that came to mind. This feels like Marvel builds up a cinematic universe, and DC wants to get up to speed, so they have to quickly rush it. And
Did it
the
actually
result-
sell well, the PS1 Classic? Does anyone know? Because it's been out, hasn't it, for a while? No,
I have no idea.
I know it
If it sold well.
didn't outsell. It didn't sell more than the SNES or the NES on release, and I believe, if early numbers are to be are expected, it didn't outsell the SNES and the NES classics now. Like, as in, you expect the Sony one to have a big.
You would think
Yeah.
it'd have a be hard to hit in a way than the NES and SNES, because while for me it's not as nostalgic as those consoles, for a massive amount of the population, it should have that nostalgic hit because it was so goddamn popular.
especially in the
first
UK.
console. If you think about it, the
UK, yeah.
PlayStation 1 was the first console that non-gamers probably bought into. Like, up until this point, you know, and this is not me stereotyping because I'm a gamer as much as anyone is, but I think up until Sony released their PlayStation, gaming was always considered that kind of like, oh, it's the geeky kids in the corner with
Yeah.
spots,
Yeah.
like trying to play, like, you know. Where Sony, they released that console and they managed to aim it to everyone, and everyone had one. Do you know what I mean?
Well, they in the UK they marketed it to like teens. There was a big thing with Wipeout being pushed in nightclubs. It was
War
it was
power?
Power.
I thought you said white power. I was like, why
Oh
would
God, no!
why would Sony be pushing white power?
Well, that's how they got such a big audience. Wow.
Jesus
oh God.
Man, my hearing is awful.
I definitely. I don't think I said that. I'm very worried.
No, you probably didn't.
No,
Just
no,
I got
no.
awful hearing.
Jesus. Oh God! Don't edit that out. But yeah, so you are right though, and to kind of follow what you're saying, Doom, I did notice in the Amazon UK charts, which probably not the definitive sales metric, but you know, a reasonable place to start from. The NES and the SNES classics are outselling the PlayStation on that classic on there. Now they are cheaper, and there's also like there might be still a bit of a buzz from those actually being available. Of course, especially the NES Classic has horrible stock issues. But with that said, you guys are completely right. Especially in the UK, we are PlayStation country. We always have been pretty much, if not since day one, since very early on.
Yeah.
And there would be a lot of nostalgia for that. Now, whether this is, I mean, what do you guys think? Do you think this is bad word of mouth, maybe hurting
I
sales?
think
Is
so.
this-
I think a massive amount of the people who are going to buy it are going to be mostly people who play games, I would think, and like dads and mums who are like, oh, I liked that when I was a kid, I'll get it. And then they hear that there's bad games on it, there's nothing they like on there.
All the
And
reviews
then,
are bad, pretty much. So
Yeah, but
Yeah.
it's like Amazon, because you mentioned Amazon, it was the PlayStation Classic was #1 on the pre-orders list, and I think after they announced all the games, I think it kind of dropped down that list a lot.
Right.
Yeah, it did.
So that game list, I'm not going to say I'm a bit of an apologist for it, but there are some neat hidden gem picks. I've made it a running gag recently. Yeah, well, Persona is super interesting. It's
it's like
this
the
is what
easiest
makes
way to get the game officially now, isn't it? Pretty much.
it is, but this is what makes this device confusing because all the ways it's bad in, like, you know, bad image quality, bad performance, those are the things that would put off, you know, some of the more dedicated players. So you think, oh, it's going for a casual audience then. But if that's the case, you would not have thought Persona 1 would be there, or Rainbow Six, like you know, some of these titles which are just a little, you know, sci-fi that seems too fiddly for a casual audience.
Yeah.
That's what makes this. And as I said, I love some of these hidden gem picks. Like Mr. Driller is a great little action puzzler. Super Puzzle Fighter 2 Turbo. That's not a game you'd associate with the PlayStation. So I understand the annoyance with, like, that's the same with Mr. Driller and a few others. But they are interesting games. But again, I don't know how widely appealing they would be to the people who would be buying this.
It also got like a really weird localization of the Persona game. I don't know if you know much about it, but they made one of the main characters black to make it.
Yes, it's fascinating in retrospect because Atlas are so good at localizing being faithful. This is just such a. It's worth looking up. There's just like pages after pages on sites of like every change they made, and so again, it's like it's not even a great version of that. So. Who is that pick on there to appeal to? Is it kind of like is it like GTA's inclusion where, well, the later games are popular, so we'll put this earlier, less popular one on there, even though.
Oh, I remember GTA, the first GTA being massively popular even back then. People loved it. Even I enjoyed it for a little bit.
I mean, that's a series that exploded with the third one, kind of like with Persona, but Persona was on a smaller scale, where like the first couple were really niche, and then it got really big. GTA was always popular day one. You're right, it just exploded later on.
Yeah, it was more popular on the PC and things back in the day, if I remember correctly. I remember seeing an image on it was Games Radar GRcade, and it was an image of a nerdy looking guy by a PC with GTA 1 on the screen. Then 2, it was like a slightly younger person by a PC. And then the third image was of, say, GTA 4 or something, or 3 or 4 or something like that. And it was like a 12-year-old on a console playing it. It showed like the evolution of the game and the players.
As the games get more 18 rated, they get like they go younger, don't they? In that way.
Yeah.
You know what I think, Jazz? You know, Persona's like more popular than it's ever been, like especially with Persona 5. So maybe they're backing off getting like.
Yeah. What you gotta remember?
Publicity from that.
Yeah, Persona 5 made it onto the final list for Game of the Year last year. So.
Right.
But again, this is not, as Kriken says, this is a bad version of this game because it's not well localized.
Yes, but people don't know that.
Well, that's the thing, and it's also like there are fans of the first two games, especially the second one, but they are not 3, 4, 5. They are no. They're not especially friendly, and I can just imagine a lot of people playing it like for a bit, not really being a bit like, oh, this isn't quite what I thought it was.
We're gonna feel duped for sure.
It is. I tell you, it is funny in general. These classic consoles, like it's great they have RPGs on them, but at the same time, I do wonder how many people have sat through like all of Final Fantasy 1 on any. Like these systems seem more conducive to the arcadey actiony titles. I would have expected. I still think it's cool to put the RPGs on them, especially as
maybe some of these games like Rainbow Six, it's quite popular now, and then you've got like Persona's 5, like Kriken was saying, maybe it is literally for someone who walks the shop, looks at the back, think, oh, these are quite popular, I'm enjoying these, I'll buy this and see what the original games were like. Could be that.
And they'll be like, holy shit, this is a bad port of a PC FPS on a digital controller.
Yeah.
And it runs like crap because it's the PAL version, and we haven't even gone to the whole PAL thing with it.
Well, I was going to say, apart from the PAL thing, I think one major admission to this whole car crash is they did not include DualShock controllers.
Yeah.
Right.
There's not many games on there that need them, is there? There is one or two, but they do need them.
Six could have been a game that we could have been positive about if you had those controllers. And I'm not sure on the dates, but obviously at some point they went from the original PlayStation controllers to the first DualShock controllers. I don't remember a PlayStation having anything but DualShock controllers. Like in my head, I don't remember like when we got our PlayStation, it came with DualShock controllers. When my friends got it, it came with DualShocks.
It's
I
the most
would've
iconic
thought-
controller for sure. That controller of the DualShock.
I would have thought if they're going for nostalgia, if Sony were going for nostalgia, more people would have owned a DualShock controller with their PlayStation than a standard one. Do you see what I mean? Just from that
Yeah.
perspective, if I was a casual, total casual, and I had a PlayStation, I guarantee it would have been a DualShock controller that came with it. How disappointed as a casual would you be if you just assumed it was coming with one, you bought it, you open the box, and you're like, "Where's my sticks gone?" But then at that point, Sony's got your money, and they're not going to care, are they?
It's
You know what
gone. Well, I suppose they could take it back, especially as I'm pretty sure the box shows the controller on it.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
don't
On-
know
online,
that.
You know what people are like, quick buys online and stuff like
Yeah.
that. Like, you know.
Yeah.
I don't know,
Yeah.
I just think that's a major, like, not just from the games that were on it, but just from the perspective of if you're going for nostalgia, you surely you would include the most nostalgic controller included, which was the DualShock controller. You know.
I'm
Thing
going
is-
to proposition a question. So it's obviously a cost cut in fitness. They want it under 100 quid, or I think it's like $100. So it would have cost more to do that. Do you think they would have been better as opposed to 2 digital pads, putting in 1 DualShock?
And selling the other, and selling
And
this.
sell it, yeah.
Yeah, there's how many games? Looking at this, there's not many games that are actually 2-player on here, is there?
Tekken,
Puzzle Fighter.
Puzzle Fighter.
I think maybe Mr. Driller. I might be wrong on that.
Twisted Metal, was that 1 or 2? Ridge
I
Race
don't know
Top
if that-
4?
Battle Arena to if you wanna, you can convince someone.
Yeah, to be fair, you know.
Would you have accepted a DualShock controller if it was cheaper to make without Rumble? Because
Well,
these controllers haven't got Rumble anyway, so
Well,
I
the
would be
thing is,
fine.
one of the biggest things people have said is a shame about no DualShock is it robs Metal Gear Solid of some of its fourth wall breaking moments, like the bit where you're told, "Oh, put the controller on your arm," and it's like, "Oh, it's massaging your shoulder," like it does Snake in the game.
right.
Or that infamous boss who, he reads your memory cards and he's
Mantis,
like,
yeah.
"Yeah, Prosaica Mantis, yeah," and so that's another. It might not be a bad compromise, though. I get what you mean. Just have the analog, but not the rumble.
Yeah,
if
they
it
should have
works
put
out
in one pad in there and sold the other one like they did with the NES Classic. That'd have been fine for me personally. But looking at the game list, it's like a lot of these games I have no connection with. Like Intelligent Cube, I think I played a demo. Battle Arena, I never played. Rayman, I like that. Time Filter, Jumping Flash, Cool Borders 2. I prefer the Saturn snowboarding game that I can't remember the name of. Never played Wild Arms.
So this is the other problem with this. The PlayStation has a pretty amazing broad library of games. So much so that 2 owners of it would have had likely completely different experiences. So I
Yeah.
do think consolidating that library down to 20 titles was always going to be an issue.
Yeah,
That
but if
said,
they
it
did the
is-
poll like I think they did, then they should
Yeah.
have a rough idea of the top 20 most top 30, top 40, even if it's the top 40. Like, no one would have voted for fucking Rainbow Six.
That is the one I just keep coming back to as my punchline. I am forever baffled by that inclusion. It's so bizarre. But you are right, there would be... I mean, to be fair, this does get Tekken, PAL Tekken, so it's not a conversion. But it gets FF7 and MGS, a Ridge Racer, which that was a pretty big series, but there's also more missing than I would have expected. I'm at least surprised it didn't get a Tomb Raider on there. We could assume Crash and Spyro, probably Activision weren't willing to play ball with the Spyro trilogy, CTR,
Yeah.
the remake coming out, and it's still it still feels weird they couldn't have gotten one Crash one here. I don't think if they put like Crash 2 or 3 on there, I think that would have been okay, even with the Insane trilogy out. But unfortunately, Gran Turismo, probably, I think Gran Turismo 1 or 2 is the best-selling game on the PlayStation.
Yeah.
It's also a myriad of car license in hell. Same with like
Yeah.
Tony Hawk and everyone people wanted. That's the other thing with this era of games, as well as there being so many that would be hard to consolidate down.
Yeah.
It's also a licensing nightmare, especially with like different publishers and different regions. And it gets really complicated around this era.
Still doesn't explain the Rainbow Six.
No, it doesn't. Like at all.
Nintendo had like an
the
advantage
fancy
in the sense that like most of the good games were like first party, so they didn't have these like licensing issues.
Right, exactly.
See, realistically, quickly moving to Nintendo, you could argue that their ultra strict regime that they kind of held over game developers back in the NES and the SNES days was harsh on developers, and Sony came along and went, "Hey, come and develop for our system. We're not going to be so restricting in that." But looking back at it, and being able to develop these nostalgic consoles, you could see that Nintendo probably were right to do what they did. Like, at the end of the day, they had full control over quality. You know, they either made games themselves, or if anyone else wanted to make a game, it better be good because they ain't having it on their console. It's just a simple matter of quality. Because then when you want to revisit these games, and they must have been thinking for the future. They must have thought, if these games become classics, we can resell them in the future. They must have thought that back then. I guarantee it.
I don't know, because if you look back at Animal Crossing on the GameCube, they were giving you NES games, and then when they realised people want to play them, they then started selling them separately.
To be honest, I kind of coupling Pedz's point there. There's a surprising lack of foresight at times. Like, there's so many cases of source code being lost, or like, you know, there's a reason game preservation is an issue as well. Just there wasn't always that much thought to that. I don't think what you're saying is wrong necessarily. I think maybe around the SNES era, because that was when we got Mario All Stars, or like a couple of other, like, you get like point and click compilations on the PC. I think there was the idea of that starting to come into play. It's difficult to say exactly when, though. I think the PS1 era in particular probably, because so much of the appeal, like, of something like Tony Hawk, was just all the licensed music. A lot of people, when they talk about that, they'll say, "Oh, I remember this song from it," or, you know, with Gran Turismo, the appeal was all these cars, so it would have been just at the time getting those licenses and perhaps not thinking ahead if they ever wanted to re-release these, because why would they, I suppose, in a way, at the time.
See, talking about licensing issues, I know it's not really PlayStation-centric. Now let's go bowling. Thank you so much for that, follow. My point was, is that when you talk about licenses, some games you'd think they would just get around that by like Outrun. You think they could make a new Outrun, just not have a Ferrari in it. Just do a different red car.
Especially with Outrun, nobody cares about the Ferrari at this point. No.
I just thought to mention we've got a question from Garrett.
Oh, yes.
Right. My apologies. I didn't see that question, Garrett.
So, which titles are each of you glad are on the Classic? And if you could swap out any title for a different title, which would they be? Can I say quickly, I would just swap out the system altogether. Get a better emulator, because the problem is, no matter what games are on there, while that's still a valid topic because of the casual market, none of them are going to run properly until, I mean, the homebrew scene's working on RetroArch, but that's my cynical answer. My actual one is, well, actually, no, I'll let you guys go first. Well, I think.
Looking at,
I don't plan on getting it, but I'd say Abe's Odyssey probably is the one that I was pleased it was there at the time, I guess, but like I wasn't really planning on getting the system. I was like, oh, that's a cool game.
For me, looking at the 20 games, the one out of them that I would like to play most is probably Rayman. And I'd like them to replace that game we've mentioned several times with pretty much any other game.
All right, here's the rule. None of us can say we're going to remove Rainbow Six, because we're all going to remove Rainbow Six.
Okay, then, instead of Rainbow Six, I would rather get rid of Abe's Odyssey or Wild Arms, because I don't know what that is, and replace it with something like Street Fighter Alpha games, if they were on the PlayStation 1. Was it Alpha 3?
All three of them were.
No, all three of them then. All three of them have 3 games.
I'm trying to think now. I don't have a lot of nostalgic kind of feeling for the PlayStation as much as I did for. By that point, I can't remember what I was playing back then. Probably a lot of Mega Drive, and then moved to Game Boy. So until my N64, but I'd like to have seen maybe another fighter on there, something a bit different. So I probably would have swapped out Puzzle Fighter for Marvel vs. Capcom 1. Just to have a bit more representation of fighters, because when I did play PlayStation, it was fighters I played. That was my fighters console. So I had Tekken 1, 2, 3. I had Marvel vs. Capcom. So I don't know. I'd just like to have seen one of those more arcadey fighting type games.
It's also a Digimon Rumble Arena. I think you forgot to mention that.
Oh yeah, there's that as well.
Jeez, Doom.
I know. I'll just leave the room.
Please don't.
It would have been cool if they cleaned up the beta of Resident Evil 2.
Yeah.
Could have been for Star Fox 2.
That is,
It would have been a lot of work to do that.
that's a really interesting parallel. I mean, the problem there is that wasn't a finished game what they made, was it?
It wasn't anywhere near finished, yeah.
But still, it would be cool to have that officially released in some capacity, wasn't it?
Mhm.
It's so different from the final version of RE2.
Was you going to say the games you would like in there seriously instead of being your usual self, Jazzem?
Well, that usual self is put. I mean, Battle Arena to Shinden, I think, is an interesting pick because it seemingly was a very iconic early title. It's also apparently like just a dog to play by, like just Tekken 3 alone just makes it seem so redundant in that sense. So maybe take that off. I'm going to go with like a bit of a hidden gem series in general. You guys familiar with the Klonoa line of platform?
Klonoa, yeah.
I was playing that recently, yeah.
It's Namco's weird. I don't think they've ever said what exactly he is. He's a sort of skunk rabbit thing. He's got he's the adorable little character with like a blue hat with Pac-Man on it. So you know he's legit. But
to be honest, when I first saw Klonoa, I thought he'd fit in with the Sonic franchise.
He doesn't look far off, does he?
Yeah.
The games are, I mean, they are jauntier. They're a bit cuter than Sonic, but the first game also notoriously has a bizarrely upsetting ending. Like it's a little jarring in that sense. But
Cool.
the first one's a lovely 2.5D platformer, so side scroller but 3D environments. We've got Namco on here with Mr. Driller, Ridge Racer 4, and Tekken, so maybe like 4 Namco games might be posted there admittedly, but Klonoa is a lovely little platformer. That's because that's the other thing. There aren't that many platformers on here. I mean, what have we got? We've got Rayman, we've got Oddworld. I think that's like Jumping Flash as well, which I guess that's the only 3D platformer on there. Which again, a cool game, but not what perhaps people would think of as like the system's premier 3D platformer.
What they realistically should have done is said, Nintendo, can we borrow some of your games? I want a platformer that's good.
I have all of that, mate.
Then again, Rayman is good. I remember watching some dweeb play the other day. Yeah, I think he beat the game.
After dying a gazillion times.
It's a cheat though to beat it.
Well, okay, so that's the thing. Like, I still I think the PlayStation Classic just have the Rayman 1 Infinite Lives cheat code, like just scroll until they can do not play Rayman 1 without that lives cheat code. Believe me, still a lovely game, but it's not balanced for like limited continues.
Back to the topic of licensing issues. I'm guessing most of you have heard that there's actually like more games than like actually have like you can load properly. Like there are like some more ISOs on there.
Okay, so
But you
this
can't
got
access them.
confused. What it was, there were like people found names of other games that weren't included.
Yeah, it was like placeholder
it's
stuff,
not,
wasn't
it's
it?
not the full ISOs, yeah.
Oh,
But
right, okay.
off the top of my head, there were odd titles in there. There were stuff like the Gran Turismos, actually quite a few Street Fighters. I'm pretty sure Crash and or Spyro was in there. The weirdest one,
Like just names.
just like names of like the general consensus is these are games they were considering putting on there. Like it's not known for sure, but that's probably most likely. The weirdest one is Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone.
Like
The
that.
video game was on there. Which would be nostalgic, but God knows how that holds up. Like especially on this thing for the emulators.
I dread to think. Oh, jeez.
And what would the licensing cost be like for that as well? Bloody hell.
Oh, there was that leaked footage of Harry Potter. Maybe that's why they thought, oh look, this game looks good. People seem to like this trailer. Let's put this game on there. And the people behind it were like, let's see your game list. No, we don't have Harry Potter on your console.
I think that's just what makes this product endlessly fascinating. So much of the decision making on it just seems so bizarre. It's just a frantic way to try and make sense of it all, sometimes easier than others. I think, again, to what you were saying, Doom, it perhaps speaks to a product that was rushed and honestly, conceptually, probably pretty cynical.
Yeah.
Like, I'm sure people working on it wanted to do the best they could. I doubt it's on them, but like, it wouldn't surprise if this was like knocked together quickly with strict deadlines.
Yeah.
I mean, to be fair, licensing negotiations are like the most nightmares of nightmares to do, but maybe the list we got was just what they could reasonably get within that time frame, like within what little money they probably wanted to spend on this film.
Do you think, overall, given how badly this was done, how big of a chance is there that we're going to see a PlayStation 2 Classic? One, I'm not on about like next year and that, because obviously emulation, PS2 emulation, you're requiring a bit more power there, and trying to keep it under the £100 mark might be on the tough side. But hypothetically, do you think this is going to have a knock-on effect to the sales of a PS2 Classic? Because people are going to go, well, hang on a minute, we fell for this the last time.
I don't know. I could see it having an effect if they just announce it with no games, but if they announce it with 20 games, the full list, and 20 games are what the majority of people who are looking at were like, oh my god, this looks great. I don't think it would make much of a problem when it comes to the game. It's the problem you have is if they just take a emulator that is on the internet and go, we'll use the earliest version of it we can find and stick it on there, then you're gonna have problems. So I think that what will happen is there'll be less pre-orders and that kind of thing. Yeah. But if it reviews well, I think the sales will shoot up afterwards.
Yeah.
I do wonder if, like, it does seem like sometimes the people forget easily when it comes to this sort of, given how many years it would have to be until a PS2 Classic.
Yeah.
I feel like at least like the average consumer might, if it seemingly an appealing product, the average consumer might go onto it. But I do think a lot of people in the games press, people like us, like the question is whether we are like the true market, true audience for this film. But
we're not really.
We are the way we are, and we're not really, isn't it? It's weird, but you are absolutely right. People would meet it with cynicism because they haven't. Whatever classic system Nintendo does next, there's some people who aren't into the system, that's fine, but they've been well received, it's been well put together, so there won't be cynicism there. There definitely would be for whatever Sony does next in this film.
I suppose, but like the PS2 Classic, if it does come, it'll be time from now, so by then it might be forgotten, maybe.
Yeah. This is where, I think, it's like reenacting the console wars all over again, isn't it? But I think this is when Nintendo.
For Mini.
That's what I was going to say. Is I think this is when Nintendo win this, because if you look at where emulation is at the moment, I mean, okay, N64 emulation is not exactly cutting edge, like top end stuff. At the moment, it's still a bit
wonky,
but
to say the least.
Yeah. But we are talking about Nintendo here. If they really wanted to, and they put a little bit of money into R&D, I don't think it would take them that long to develop their own version of like their own system and get games running flawlessly. I tend to have a lot of faith in Nintendo when it comes to these things. They are very, very good at it. They know how to develop. They've literally spent 30 years, however long it's been, developing systems and developing games to run on their system specifically. So I
for
don't
sure.
think it would be.
The problem you've got is like with the Wii U, the emulation on there was quite. It wasn't bad in the respect of games ran badly, but they were like really
image quality,
dark
wasn't
and yeah, it was like. So they Nintendo have issues as well, seemingly, and from the sounds of it, I think it was the Wii U version of certain games that people found out from whatever they were doing. That they were actually ROMs that were again from online.
Yeah.
By other people. So Nintendo were just as bad for falling foul as any other company, as Sony then. But I guess they put a lot more thought into it. Maybe they trying to please fans more than they were doing or something. I don't know. But now with the Switch doing so well, I maybe they're trying to not do a Wii and squander that praise, you know?
Yeah.
It's funny as well with Nintendo retro releases. The Wii, infamously the Virtual Console, was PAL 50 Hertz pretty much across the board here, apart from import titles. Even then, the import Mega Drive games were forced at 50 Hertz. So for people who don't know, that means the games will be just below 20% slower. They'll be bordered, so there'll be borders at the top and the bottom of the screen. And that's
but like the casual person's not going to notice, are they? Because they grew up with those.
It is well. It's weird because in a way, yes, in a way, no. Because so to bring this back to the PlayStation Classic, 9 of the included games are PAL.
Yeah.
Even on the American version, which is pretty much unprecedented.
That's funny. Yeah.
That's obscene. And one of my favorite theories is that they just couldn't get the US versions off like MU Paradise before it closed down.
So Nintendo killed the PlayStation 1 Classic.
The sneaks. But yeah, so I think the thing is, these games on the PlayStation Classic, they run at their original resolution as well, so they're 240p, scaled up pretty badly, notoriously on this thing right now. I don't know if there was ever going to be a way to make them that presentable, and that's why I think this is a bit of a tricky situation again, it's kind of a nostalgic thing, but I don't know how palatable old 3D games are at that low resolution on a flat screen. And then you top...
32-bit doesn't age very well. Really.
It's certainly tricky. I mean, I can be a bit kinder to that era, but even then, I like on an emulator, I like to bump the resolution up, which you can't on this. And so you couple that with like poor performance made even worse because of the PAL situation in some cases, and even then, this gets a bit technical, but the PAL games running on the PlayStation Classic are being forced into 60 Hertz, which means like every 5th frame gets duplicated. So in other words, they are juddery. They are worse than they would have. Like at least the original PAL releases would have been relatively smooth. They would have generally been slower because of how games were programmed back then. But that's like one of the big problems with this, and people might not consciously realize, or as you say, it might have been what they were used to in terms of speed, but it will. I think the Digital Foundry guy made a good point on this. It could contribute to people thinking these games ran worse than they did. They didn't always run well, but there's cases like Ridge Racer, which was pretty much unlocked 30 FPS in the original system. And here it wavers, and then like GTA 1 is like juddery 17 frames per second on this. It's. I think even if people don't consciously realize what's going on, they would think these games aren't very playable by today's standards. When done this badly.
The thing you've got is people who are looking at the PlayStation Classic and the SNES and the NES Mini. You're looking at the NES Mini, you're like, oh, it's a bit because of the visuals. You look at the SNES, like, oh, this looks lovely, the 2D art and blah blah blah. And then you go to the PlayStation, like, Jesus Christ, did games look that bad when they first went 3D? Back in the day, it was like, oh my god, this is amazing. But looking back now, it's like,
this looks terrible. I need to get a PS4.
The thing is, the other thing that is probably affected it is, you can get PlayStation 1 Classic games on the PlayStation 3 and on the PlayStation. Can you get PlayStation 1 games through PlayStation now, or is it just 2, 3, 4?
Ooh, I don't know actually.
Either way, if you think about it, right, people are more likely that if they've got a PlayStation 3 already to go, oh well, this game wasn't on there, this game wasn't on there. Oh, I could just download these games off the PlayStation Store anyway, save a bit of cash, and have better versions of the games that are also like upscaled and what have you, compared to the PlayStation 1 Classic that is just like bog standard laziness.
So, do you want to know what the best way to play PlayStation 1 games via a relatively modern device on the TV is? I believe it's through
Vita
a
TV?
PSP. It's through a PSP 2000 or 3000.
Alright, I
Go,
thought it would be the
actually.
PlayStation Now TV box thingy.
So
PlayStation
you hook
Vita
it up
TV?
via components, and you set the systems output to interlace, and then these games they run at 240p, which is like the ideal resolution for them. So they're not upscaled badly, and especially on the CRT, that can look really good.
Yeah.
So the thing is, it's a lot to ask someone to do that, let alone the fact that also most games on the UK PS1 range on PSN are also 50 Hz themselves, so you want to then buy them from the US store. And what we're getting at is Sony haven't done a terribly good job with this lineage, I feel, in recent years, and it's a shame none of it's on the PS4, really. I mean, they did PS2 for a bit, that's kind of died down, and we mentioned the Xbox earlier, and Microsoft have done a pretty amazing job there, sort of consolidating both original Xbox and 360 onto the Xbox One lately.
It makes you think how much money they will, like... You've got the Xbox One, which is massively great with its backwards compatibility stuff. And then you've got, like, PlayStation, which is a bit shit when it comes to it, and you got to think, do they think they're not going to make much money from it, or were they literally not getting much money from this stuff? Like, people would buy the PlayStation 3, which would work with the PlayStation 2 games, and just think, I'll just have one game with my new PlayStation 3 and just play a couple of my old games till something else comes along, instead of the initial, I'll just buy a load of games with my new console. I wonder if that has an effect. Then again, that's nothing to do with the PlayStation Classic.
I suppose the tricky thing is how because it's gone back and forth. Like there was that infamous quote from a Sony rep, like about backwards compatibility, where it was like, "Oh, I saw Gran Turismo, one of the older Gran Turismo," and I thought, why would anybody play this? And of course, people are putting that quote on like the PlayStation Classic now. Just sort of this. I mean, whether he's fairly high ranking in Sony Computer Entertainment, I think. Like you'd hope that attitude wouldn't be across the company, just in regards to their older titles. But maybe there is just the thought that most, the mass market would be going for the newest games, especially if they're, they buy a new expensive console, they want to play the new games on there.
Yeah.
But frankly, I think it's important that games remain available, just as old movies do. It's a lot of classic, like early, classic movies going back. They're not going to be making all the money of new releases, but they can continue to be profitable by just being released like on streaming services. You'd hope the same could be done with like these old games fairly routinely, like in a way that is appealing to the consumer, is easy, is quick, they run and look well. It's just these companies have been quite consistent about it, unfortunately, and you get a product like this, which again just feels so cynical, just so not what that lineage deserves, unfortunately.
Yeah, maybe with that guy though, he's like, why would anyone play this? Maybe he wasn't thinking it from like, oh my god, this is awful. Maybe he was thinking along the lines of, this newer version of the games, which in theory are better, they look better. Maybe they would rather just play that. Maybe he wasn't being an ass going, no one would want to play old games are shit.
Well, Gran Turismo is a case where you'd assume generally the newest version would be what people would be the most interested in, even though there would still be some appeal to older ones. But
Isn't Gran Turismo 3 the most popular one? Like,
I'm not sure, honestly, but like if it is, then yeah, there you go. There's an argument for why people would want to play the older ones still.
Yeah. I'm not sure if it's the most popular in terms of sales, but I'm sure like people I've spoken to said it's the best one they've played. But that could just me being wrong, because I'm wrong often. But you never know. So there you go. Is there anything else you want to say about the PlayStation Classic, or should we move on to the next topic, as we have some time? And
I'll just say quickly, just quickly, Homebrew's looking pretty promising on the PlayStation Classic at least. So that could...
on Homebrew, I think I mentioned him in one of my streams, ETA Prime. I mentioned him to Jazzem. He's the go-to guy when it comes to Homebrew. They've already hacked the PlayStation Classic. they found an exploit which allows you to run any game you want from a USB stick. You've got to have like an OTG adapter, and then you stick all your ISOs on it, and then basically what you got to do is you start a gamer, and then on the PlayStation logo, when that pops up, start and select, and then that opens like a sub menu, which is the hack, and then you can run any game off it. And they've also found a way to break into like the system settings and fix all the problems basically, so games run smoother, and just simply by breaking into what's already on the system.
Well, I will say, you're talking about the keyboard trick there, right? Apparently not everything works on there. Like there's an option about 60 hertz that doesn't quite
that doesn't work properly. No.
Yeah, I think you can still do one or two fixes. But I think what you are rightly getting at is the functionality is being improved. I would still say it's not worth it because it would be with the bundled emulator. When I think it'll be worth it is when they get like RetroArch properly on there. You can basically just use a different emulator altogether.
I heard the SNES Classic does that better, doesn't it? I just heard this anyway, that it runs the PS1 games better than
somebody
Classic does.
They do it through RetroArch. The thing is, though, even if they can get it working, and you would then think, oh, it's worth it. If you want that Sony product, I guess it's worth it. But again, you don't get your DualShocks. The best thing to do, if you want value for money and you want to play your PlayStation games, is buy an Amazon TV stick, the 4K one, which you can buy for, when they're on offer, you can buy for £35, or they're $49.99 standard, and that's got enough power to play. So it's half the price. You can load RetroArch onto it, or you can run PCSX or whatever you want to run off it. Just side load it on, and that has more computing power. It uses the same GPU, but it's got more RAM and CPU power, and it runs PlayStation Run games at like 60 frames a second. You can upscale them up to 720, I think even up to 1080 off this Fire Stick. It's got plenty of oomph to do it. Everything works really well, and crucially, you can load any game you want on it. Even if you don't own a controller, because it's a Bluetooth, you can connect everything via Bluetooth. Buying a stick, the controller, an OTG adapter, and a 32 gig or whatever size stick you want still comes to £35 less than just buying the PlayStation Classic.
Alright, cool.
So don't buy a PlayStation Classic.
Yeah, even if they can
I'd love we just had it.
Yeah, but you are right. Like there are better ways to play PS1 games. Not as readily available as I'd like. As I said, they should be on PS4 already, but there are options.
Yeah, I use my PSP, which I got for 30 quid. I soft modded that, so I can play any PS1 game with that. So that's like, I mean, it doesn't have the stick isn't ideal. Like it's got no analog stick for those games, but it's a good emulator. That has a good PS1 emulator on it. the PSP.
What about the Vita? Can the Vita run PS1 games? I assume it can.
Yeah, it can. Yeah. Probably
It can do. If you're fussy like me and you want to play 60 Hz stuff, you've got to figure out like American account there. So it gets fiddly there, but if you get it running, they do look lovely on there. That screen is so nice.
You can homebrew a Vita as well.
So when you're talking about, basically when you're talking about like playing on the Vita, the PSP, the PlayStation Classic, the PlayStation 3, whatever, basically you're saying is you need to be American to have a tidy version of the game. Because otherwise you're stuck with shitty versions that run slow, play crap, and may as well go in the bin.
Dude, just look up like Final Fantasy 9. Like the battles are already slow in that. It's just it's agony. It's so bad. That's what it was for us back then. We were trouble people.
Right, would you like to move on to the next subject, guys? I believe
something a bit more positive, I think.
I believe the next subject is, how do you like to do your hair in the morning? It is not that.
Who has the finest flock of hair here? Because mine's just really short, so I haven't got an answer. Who has like a mullet? Who's the mulletiest?
Mullatron.
I've left my hair grow out a little bit, so I think I'm probably up there.
Hey. It wins.
Yeah.
Right,
Cool.
I've got down Super Smash Bros. Ultimate and other Smashes, as in other Smash games. Would you like to talk about Super Smash Bros. Ultimate and other Smash games?
Yeah, has anyone played this game before? Sounds like this strange.
I've
obscure-
heard-
Are you not
I've heard of
familiar,
it.
Kriken?
Yeah.
What did you say? Sorry. You played that a bit, yeah. See, yeah, me too.
So yeah,
one week
as-
today, I want to say, right?
Yeah, it's been a week since it's come out. I got it on the day of release. I know some people got it early, but I've been playing it a bit, and I like it. I'm done. That's enough said. But I believe Kriken and Jazzem has probably put the most time into it. Jazzem probably more than any of us when it comes to the World of Light.
Mode,
Yeah, so
Yes.
as Jazzem has played it the most, would you like to tell us a little bit about World of Light?
Yeah, so this is interesting because I remember right up until that last Smash Direct, everyone was wondering, is this going to have an adventure mode? Is this going to have one? Because I'm right in saying Smash 4 didn't really have one, did it?
Yeah, I didn't really have much single player modes in general.
Right.
You didn't need a single player mode, you had that stupid board game. I mean, amazing
That's
board
true.
game.
So as we
Amazing
say,
board
it
game.
didn't have an adventure. yeah. That infamous. I mean, I had fun with it. It was like infamously Smash 4 wasn't that great for the single, but I still put a hell of a lot of time into it. But yeah, you get to the end of that last Smash Direct, and yeah, surprise, surprise, there's a whole surprisingly lengthy, meaty campaign mode in the Smash Brothers game. And so the setup is quite interesting of it, where you only start off with Kirby, which, Sakurai, his creation, he's allowed that. That's fair. And then you go around this really large, expansive, and very beautifully hand-painted map, actually, with all these little spaces on them. With, I'd probably say this game's equivalent of... no, you know what it is? The spirits in this, they're a mix of trophies. And you might recall the stickers from Brawl as well.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, because those were those were, I also like to affectionately call JPEGs, basically, of various characters. And I believe in that they had some sort of attributes where you'd put them on characters. I think in some sort of custom modes. It was something to that effect. But yeah, so the clever conceit here is that you go to each space on this really large map, and you'll technically fight a spirit, and the spirit will be it could be any Nintendo character, or even a few like Capcom or Sega ones, like mainly for like the characters who feature as playable characters.
Konami.
So, yes, there's like quite a few Castlevania spirits, quite a few Mega Man ones, a few Bayonetta ones as well. And yes, there'll be
Really
like a pick.
obscure ones as well. Like
What's
stuff
that,
that
Grit?
hasn't even like appeared in like Nintendo consoles. You get like it was Mega Man 64, but yeah, like Leon
Yeah,
Belmont
yeah.
never appeared in a Nintendo console, but they had that, and that's like I'm not exactly sure it's an iconic Castlevania title, but
Right.
too. So yeah,
They seem quite loose on that. I mean, Snake isn't real. I mean,
It's
the
a
first
good-
two... Sorry, go on.
there was like the Twin Snakes on GameCube, wasn't there? That was like a pretty big title. That was like a GameCube exclusive as well, wasn't it? I think.
So I think it's that. There's the 3DS port of Metal Gear Solid 3. There's the Game Boy Color Metal Gear game that's no longer canonical. There's the bad NES port of 1 and the not really correct sequel on NES. I think that's about it. So it's certainly not, they seem quite loose on that. I don't really mind too much. They're probably better for not minding too much, honestly, on that front. But yeah, so the idea is you'll fight a spirit, but what they'll often do is you'll fight a character imbued with that spirit. So example that comes to mind is you get like the Skull Kid from Majora's Mask, and if I recall, you fight like a me with the Skull Kid costume, because Skull Kid is not in the game playably as a playable character. And then you get two little Kirby's. No, it was 2 little Meta Knights, and they were coloured to represent the 2 fairies that accompany Skull Kid in Majora's Mask. And so it's like the idea of like you're fighting that spirit in a very metaphorical way, but as much as they can have it work with the characters in the game, some of the assist trophies, some like like you'll get things like earthquakes as well. Like one funny one to me was like that obscure Wii game Disaster Day of Crisis. It was like the main character from that, from this really silly action disaster, natural disaster based game. So of course the stage has earthquakes going off. There's like the wind is blowing fiercely, and it's on like a level where like the city's destroyed or something like that. It's there's often kind of a funny gag to them. Like they're very clever about this, and there's a really fun sense of discovery. Just like, oh, how have they made this character? How have they made it fit with this theme? And there's often kind of a fun gag to it. There's also a bit of RPG building mechanics to it in terms of like you build up your team over time. You unlock more characters. You get these spirits that as you beat them, you can get attributes from them. I mean, you guys have played it a bit as well, right? Like it really pleasantly surprised me with how I could lose hours to it quite easily, and it was just addictive. It was sort of that fun sense to see what other parts of the map they had done and ways to homage games, or have you kind of navigate it in clever ways. I mean, are you guys positive on it as well?
Yeah.
So my first impression was it looked a bit like amateurish, and like with Direct. It went into like quite a bit of detail in it, like almost like nerdy detail. But having played it myself a bit, it is like it's fairly decent fun. It's pretty much like the event mode in previous games, like substituted.
That's what I was thinking. It's basically event mode. Yeah, it's basically like not even a story, a slightly story-based event mode, because the spirits basically do the things that the event list did. If you know what I mean.
Exactly, there's at least narrative to tie it together, isn't there? But it is in the background after that initial cutscene, basically. And yeah, I think the event mode's a good one to bring up because it is kind of a marriage of sort of the adventure modes from Melee and Brawl, although those were quite different. Those were more continuous platformers, typically, weren't they? At least for a good bit of their runtime. But yeah, it is sort of the event idea of like doing funny setups with different characters. And I always like a game with a good sense of progression to it. I did feel that here, where you level up, so you're able to take on harder challenges you weren't able to initially, because some of the spirits are surprisingly incredibly difficult, at least at first. I think we've all been taken aback a bit by some aspects of this game's difficulty, be it that or unlocking characters. The AI was surprisingly... The AI, I mean, Kriken and I have talked about this a lot. The AI seems remarkably sophisticated on this, at least compared to previous games.
Sakurai this time he actually consulted like actual competitive Smash players on how the CPU should behave, and they do like quite a few things like actually like when you're off stage they'll try and kill you, they'll like really go for it.
Right, yeah.
Kind of cool to watch actually.
I've been surprised I can't BS them as much as you sometimes can with AI. But
you go to dunk them and then they like respond with like an up air, like okay, maybe I can't do that this time. Can't do that anymore.
I was like, no, they are CPU. That's not a stupidly good play online,
Yeah. They actually had to nerf the CPUs because they were so good in the recent patch yesterday. Didn't they?
Yeah, I believe
they'd be easy to unlock.
That's it, yeah, the unlocking character. Like, see, when you get like challenger approach and then you go to fight that character to unlock them.
I lost to Wario like 5 times. he was tough.
The character approaching thing, I was wondering why it was so easy. Literally, my kid got a character unlocked on his profile earlier, and literally the character did 0% damage to my kid. I was like, why is it so easy? Like, I even lost the character fight. Because I've been doing it all through World of Light. I haven't done the complete classic mode or whatever and get a character that way. But I haven't had trouble there. Yeah. The most things I've had trouble with is like certain very specific spirits, like the Dr. Wily spirit. That was a nightmare. And then Kriken and someone else in the forum said, "Oh, this is a good idea," and I tried it and I done it like really easily. And then there was another one with wind, and then after getting certain spirit, I was like, oh, this is really simple. So there you go.
that is the nice thing where if there is one you're really struggling with, you usually don't have to do it. You can usually find another way or come back to it. In fact, you're often better coming back to it because B, there's always the chance you can, as you say, like if it's like a wind, you can get an anti-wind thing. If a lot of the stages will have like a floor that's infected with poison or kind of a zapping electricity.
Or sleep.
Yeah, honestly, it's the worst one. So yeah, you often have a way to get around them. Like you get that reward of like, oh, I've gotten these spirits now, so I can go back, equip them correctly. And I'd say the menu interface for that it's generally not too bad, especially because you can press a certain button to have the game pick suggested ones for you. So you'll often get given like an anti-electricity one if it's for a stage where the floor is electric, or something like that. So it's pretty good on that front. I do think it's a little. I could see it putting people off a bit at first because I was surprised early on to come into like really hard challenges right from the off. So you would hope people realize, oh no, it's okay. You can go back to them later, or there are ways around that.
Yeah, definitely. But difficulty is kind of like all over the place, but it really depends on which spirits you pick up first, I guess.
Yeah, right.
I think classic mode in this game is really good too. It's
Yes.
probably like the best it's ever been. It's like you got like specific fights for like each character, and some characters even have like a unique boss.
Yeah, because they tailor them for each character, which I think was probably necessary given how many of them there are in this one. Like we're trying to remember just how many. It's like 70, mid-70s basically, isn't it?
27 maybe, something like that.
And that's a lot of times to repeat a single mode over and over again. So any way they can vary it up, especially again they do it in clever ways. Like the one that stuck out to me was like the Ice Climbers. You constantly fight against duos of characters. So you go against Mario and Luigi or Ryu and Ken. Like they make them thematically, like in a very fun way, I appreciate
this one was like that. Strangely, I couldn't really figure out why it was like that. In the Dark Samus route, you did team matches all the way through.
Yeah.
And I don't know why.
Same with Lucario.
Oh, interesting. And then if you play as a Street Fighter character, well, at least with Ryu, they're all stamina matches.
That's
like
right,
a traditional fighting game would be. Yeah.
I suspect some characters are probably like there's probably a few where they were like, okay, we'll just
do this. Yeah.
Like there's maybe certain ones that was easier to do with. Yeah.
Like who's this character again?
But yeah, sorry, Tim, go on.
I was going to say, on the subject of characters and the amount of them, where do we all stand on using the exploits to unlock every character very quickly? Because I know there are a lot of people out there who refuse to do it because they feel like they've cheated the game without unlocking them properly. Like, they haven't earned
to be shamed out of the community.
Yeah.
Oh no!
I did that about a third of the way through. I was like, yeah, I can't be bothered doing this anymore. I want to play as these specific characters, so I'll use the exploit to unlock everyone as quickly as I can. Yeah.
With this sort of thing, I'm very. I really strongly feel people should play how they want to. Because personally, I liked. So to clarify, typically you either unlock characters by finding them in World of Light, which can take a while, although there will be points where you unlock quite a few at a time. And that's why I decided to get most of mine, because it felt like a fun reward of progressing through that again, some of the characters I really wanted. But also, every once in a while, just playing the game, like you could just do a random smash match, and then you'll get a challenger approaching screen where you unlock another character. So, the exploits, I don't know if... Kriken, you might be able to explain it better since you did it. That was a bit circumvent that, wasn't it?
Sorry, what did you say?
Well, how the exploit worked exactly.
How the exploit works? Well, it's strange. So, basically, the game, it keeps track of like how much you've been running or walking in game or jumping around, and after you met like a certain like quota, like you don't have to be playing the game for that long, maybe a couple of hours, and then after you've met that quota, if you do like any kind of match, like a versus match or World of Light match, like you'll get a challenger approaching like screen, and you'll get to unlock a character.
Right.
and that's basically it. But then there's a timer that's like 10 or 20 minutes.
10 minutes it was. I checked.
Yeah, 10 minutes.
I've been playing literally World of Light to unlock characters. I don't mind how people do it, but for me personally, there's such a massive amount of characters that if I play through there, then at least I can play as different people instead of just going, right, I'm going to unlock these characters and then only have a play as Link, because that's exactly what I'll do. That is what I'll do. I'll go, right, I'm only ever going to play as Link and I won't play as anyone else.
At least this way you'll play as 2 Link as well.
Isn't it?
Yeah, so when it's like a 10-minute timer, in which during this time you can't unlock another character, but if you just close the game and reopen it, like the timer goes away of a match and unlock another character and like rinse and repeat. And this way it's actually faster than unlocking all the characters in Melee, which has like only 27 characters. Because in Melee, to unlock Mewtwo, I think you need to have like, it's a strange requirement, but it takes a long time to unlock all those characters, like a really long time.
I thought
Yeah,
Mewtwo was
they
100
basically-
hours. Something like 100 hours or 1,000 KOs, something stupid like that.
So many versus matches, yeah.
I feel like as the games have gone on, as the character amount has increased, I think they've made it more straightforward, because in Melee, as you say, there were I remember the Game Awards being quite tricky as well. Like there was some kind of obtuse methods. I think at this point, I think they get a pretty reasonable balance between, because there is a nice thrill to unlocking characters, but at the same time, in a multiplayer-focused game, you ideally don't want to wait too long, which is why I'm sympathetic to people who do want to use that exploit, quite honestly, for that reason.
In a Smash 64 Melee, at least, I'm not sure about in Brawl, you could own the game for a very long time and not have all the characters, like, if you weren't aware of them. But in this game, where, like, the tagline is, everyone is here, doable to unlock everybody, so you can actually do versus matches to unlock everyone.
That's a very good point.
Yeah, and they're all very good characters. Well, okay, we're not all good, but there's something for everyone.
Yeah. What I was going to say is the unlocking way in this then can be done very, very easily, but like the way I'm doing this, like through World of Light, it feels like it's a bit of a challenge and you've earned that character, like. Whereas something like Mario Kart 8, not Deluxe, just 8, where you'd win a tournament and then you'd get a character. I didn't like that. There was no challenge behind getting the characters in like from previous games. In that, it was literally just finish 4 races and you'll get a character given to you. It's like there's no
I
remember
what it's like.
there's no like kind of triumph behind that victory. Then it's like So
what was it like in previous games? Because I can't remember. I feel like in Mario Kart DS, you have to like do certain cups to.
I think you.
like, unlock
I think it was like certain cups, time trials. I think to get Funky Kong in Wii, I think you had to do ridiculous stuff. I think you had to get every other character for get Funky Kong, couldn't you?
Wow.
And then you had
like,
to
Funky
beat.
Kong's like one of the best characters too. So.
Yeah, you had to get all the. I think you had to beat all the staff ghosts, maybe. Like the expert staff ghosts or something. Some crap like that.
See, if I'm honest, I think in most cases, I'm happy to have everyone there for the off. The thing is, with Smash, that's the one game I know I will play a lot of in single player and multiplayer. So I actually don't mind that. I think, for the general fanaticism people have for the game, I think a lot of people won't mind generally having to unlock characters. I mean, we should say as well, you only start out with 8 on this, correct?
Yeah.
The initial 8 you start out with on the original 64 Smash, which
I'm sure 2 of them were unlockable, weren't they? I'm sure Captain Falcon and Luigi, or was it?
Captain Falcon you've got to unlock, and he was a staple in 64.
So to clarify, when we say the initial 8, there were 12 characters in Smash 64.
Oh, yeah,
4 of them were unlockable. So that's Luigi, Jigglypuff,
Ness.
Exactly,
right?
Yeah. So you don't get those 4. Those 4 you also have to unlock.
Yeah.
Which made it quite weird, because I unlocked Luigi really late. Like you think Luigi would be like a very early one, but it's quite unusually. And to be fair, even in that. I could see there being cases where people pick this up, pop it in, and they are a little disappointed. They only have 8 characters to play with, especially as you say.
Like, what is this? Octopath Traveler?
Well, yeah. God damn it. He put that in so seamlessly. But yeah, like as you say, it is a big focal part of the marketing, the character roster. So I could imagine it confusing some people. And
Or like something's wrong with my game.
yeah, well,
See-
yeah, almost. Yeah, I don't know. It's,
See, one of the big things about Smash Brothers for me was playing a Millie, as we call it, Smash Brothers Millie, was unlocking characters not knowing they were on the game. There's no surprise with this game now. They've told me every single character, every single stage. They've told me how many pubes Link have got. I know too much. I want some surprises. I want at least one surprise. Like, oh, the last DLC character, you won't know till you unlock it, and it turns out to be Sakurai or something, you know? Something really cool. But no, it'll be all told to us, and we'll know everything.
You never know. Maybe there's like a secret Waluigi character.
And then I'll sell my game.
You know what? I bet Sakurai did want to do that, but he figured the game would just get leaked, and like data miners would just like leak it for him. So that's like why. Like,
And that's fair enough. But to be fair though, it's like, I personally, if there was secret cards I wouldn't know about, I'd avoid any Smash Brothers info until I unlock all the characters. That's
it's a
just
big
the way
part of the
I am.
marketing, is like ever since a bit with Brawl, especially with 3DS and Wii U when they were marketing them, like the character reveal was such a big thing.
Yeah.
And to be fair, that is why I don't completely mind. It's still a bit weird, especially like when the direct tried to paint it sympathetically, but the season pass, we only know one of the characters out of 5, and we didn't know any of them at first. But people do love that build-up to like the trailer, like, oh, is it that character? And then, you know, people lose their minds.
I really liked that trailer though for Joker.
Oh, it was so well animated, wasn't it? It was tremendous. And it's a cool inclusion. It does seem to be a bit divisive, like people who don't know Persona aren't especially fussed by it. And I've seen concerns of people saying, oh, are all the DLC characters going to be like this, where they're not that broadly appealing. It's going to be hard to appeal to everyone on that, but...
Well, that's the thing, isn't there? You've got 5 characters, and there are so many people who like so many different genres and different games, but you know, you would have thought they would have used a character that has been on a Nintendo console. It's like, fair enough, Persona 5 is now rumored to be coming to the PlayStation. It's already on the PlayStation to the Nintendo Switch, but there's still nothing said about it. So is Joker actually going to be on the platform in another form other than Smash Brothers?
Well, I think that's why it's partly exciting. It's basically confirmation that Persona 5 is coming.
They should add the Doom Marine. Should put a spoon on his back.
Ever play as him.
Really could, actually.
I would only ever play as him.
Speaking of the game, though, we spoke about some of the characters. We spoke about the World of Light, which we agreed it was like a event mode with a little bit of story to it, but then it doesn't have the same sort of... Would you say it doesn't have the same sort of substance as Subspace Emissary and Adventure Mode? Which personally I preferred Adventure Mode to Subspace Emissary.
I did too. But Subspace Emissary has its moments. Like the cutscenes are really good. The bosses are like cool as well. The platforming bits are okay, but it's kind of just like mindless action throughout most of it. I feel like.
Yeah.
Don't know what anyone else thinks, but yeah.
No, I'd agree with that. Subspace really outstayed its welcome for me. It took me a while to finish it.
But World of Light, though.
It's, World of Light in a way didn't. Like, those who were watching me stream it earlier, you would have seen me,
I
don't know how much I should say that there's... I'll just say, like...
try to be spoiler-free in the podcast so that people
I'll just say there's a lot of me looking at a guide and getting confused and a little... feeling like certain things weren't signposted very well. I'll just phrase it that way, but even then, like they could also test, I came out of it quite positively, honestly. It took me just over 20 hours to finish it, which is astounding to me, and I think it speaks to the generally pretty strong variety of it. I mean, you are doing fights over and over again.
Yeah.
There are going to be quite a few where you use the same strategy.
Well, I think
Well, yeah,
I think I said to you earlier on Steam. You didn't reply, but I've been playing it for 15 hours. I've done 313 spaces, which means I've killed that many spirits, maybe, as well as fighters.
So, yeah.
And I've only awakened 37, so I'm probably going to be a lot longer on it than you. And I'm not bored yet, which is surprising considering all I'm doing is beating game characters in the face with Link. Or me, Sword Fighter.
I think there's enough unpredictability to it. It doesn't feel rote.
Yeah,
even though it easily could. I think again, it's down to the spirits, it's down to the fun way, seeing how they mix them up.
Exactly. That's
seeing,
why I
like,
was
the
avoiding your streams on the game. Is because it's like the stuff they do in is actually pretty surprising and then really interesting, and I don't want that taken away from me. So that's why.
That's totally fair.
When you're gonna play online, it's like join in the chat, have fun.
Well, I'm done with it now, so it's like
But yeah, what I was gonna ask was just now. Is we've talked about certain aspects of the game, but we haven't really mentioned online. Kriken, as you seem to be the best player out of us four by quite a margin, what are your thoughts on online so far?
The online, it's the quality of it in terms of like lagginess. It's a lot like Wii U, which is unfortunate a bit. Is like it's not great, but you can kind of circumvent it by you can like make arenas now, which are like lobbies, but you can open them up publicly. Rules, so you can like find matches through that. Like, but matchmaking's never been good in Smash, and you can always also just like you can go online and like find good players to fight. But yeah, I think the biggest problem is it is a bit laggy, but it's at the same time I'd say it's tolerable, like for the most part.
Would you say it's not as bad as Smash 4 for online? Lagginess?
Nah, I'd say it's as bad.
Yeah?
Just as bad, yeah.
Is it? Could you maybe even say it's worse because we have to pay for online?
Yeah, I was actually going to come to that about saying, do you think it's acceptable having to pay for it online? Yeah.
Apparently they are improving. Well, the patch seems to suggest they improved it a bit, but I'm not sure if
that's true. Not sure if they're just saying it.
From what I understand, one of the big criticisms was that so the setup, if you don't do the arenas, if you don't do the lobby system, is you pick what rules you ideally would want in your match,
and you might get them, is there?
Basically, yeah. The thing for me is they get quite modular, which in a way isn't bad, but at the same time it includes things like how long do you want the match to be? Do you want it to be 3 minutes, 4 minutes? And it's I could be quite, on that I don't mind so much. If I want a no item match, the time isn't going to be my concern so much as just having the items.
Yeah, I would say that you should be able to prioritize sort of
no items match, 5 stock, no time, and just any level. I don't care what the level is.
So, in terms of the recent patch, one of the notes was that they've made it a little fussier in that it will try and match you up with someone who's, it'll try and match you up with people who are a little bit closer to your rule set. Although, again, I was hoping it wouldn't be too much on stuff like time. Like, I don't want that to be limited in that. And even then, they did say you might be waiting a little longer because of it. Probably not much longer because this game is mega popular.
I found that line kind of funny, actually, because I thought they were trying to match your rules as best as possible, but it's just because like well, that's for different stuff. But like they weren't even doing that in the first place. We're just like maybe we'll try a little bit to get your rules right. Oh, we'll try a little bit harder now. That's all they've done. Like that's it's strange.
It is interesting, like even if it's a bit vague and strange. Like you make a good point there, actually. But
at least they mentioned which characters they've like buffed or nerfed. We haven't said how, but we mentioned who. So
that's the thing. Throughout Smash 4's life, it frequently got balance patches, and they said nothing as to what they did, right? And it was up to the community, bless the people who did this, who went out and tested every move on every character in every situation.
And we only have to test a few characters at a time, I guess.
Well, that's the thing. So, as you say with this one, they're at least now saying, "Oh, we changed these characters," and it's listed every character they've changed.
Could you imagine they hadn't have said what characters they were changing?
Exactly.
And they said, "Here's the new patch. We've changed some characters." Then some poor sap is going to go through every single character. By the time they get to the last character, there'll be a new patch out, and it'll have been a waste of time.
Like with how many there are on this one. It is weird because it is. I don't think it's unreasonable to expect. I mean, hell, even I'm pretty sure Mario Tennis Aces. I'm pretty sure that like has every
That
character
break,
on that.
it's got a breakdown. It breaks
Yeah,
down.
like that's not unreasonable. And you know how fanatical people are on Smash in terms of these modular details. Like people want to know this stuff. I
For
don't.
Nintendo though, it's going to be until the next Smash game until they make progress.
Oh no!
To be honest.
Oh, the drip
To be
feeds
honest,
of like tiny little baby steps. Wow.
That's the thing though with this
Stability has
game.
been improved.
With this game now, Smash Ultimate, with all the characters and what have you, where are they going to go? What characters can they include that you could think of that would actually be of interest to a mass audience, other than like Master Chief or Kratos or Kratos?
I'd like to see.
It is
Banjo.
Kratos from. It is pronounced Kratos and then not Kratos in Symphony of
Shirt, honestly.
Tales of Symphonia.
Oh, I thought you meant the God of War guy. Like,
No, it's Kratos.
Yeah.
I was like, I'm pretty sure it's Kratos, and I don't think Sony was playing ball on that.
No. I said both. I said Kratos and Kratos.
Oh, that's great.
They could put Lloyd in it. Another anime
Yeah,
sword fighter.
Gino's really popular. I'm not sure, like among mainstream like audiences, if Gino is that well known, but a lot of people want Gino. Like he's regularly like sort of the character for like Smash. I don't know.
Yeah,
I'm
there's
not
quite.
fussed about
Well, the thing is,
myself.
there's been a number of long requested characters, and we see a couple of them in Ultimate, like Ridley's the big one, K. Rool as well. I understand was like a big...
Waluigi's one of the big. I think he's probably the biggest of all.
When they add him as a character to play as, I will refuse to buy the game.
Be stomping people off stage with Waluigi.
I know what will happen.
Long legs.
No, I know what will happen. I'll be like, "Oh, guys, do you fancy a game?" And then everyone will play as Waluigi. Just like whenever we play Mario Kart, everyone, as soon as it comes up, will pick Cheeseland. Even though I would rather, honestly, when that comes up, I think about taking my knife and sticking it in my eyes.
Oh, Waluigi's stage is going to be Cheeseland.
Oh, fuck off.
It's going to be so good. I can't wait.
You know what I mean? It's just a character you can't stand, and everyone's purposely going to do it to annoy you. And then it's going to put you off the game, and then you're not going to play it ever again.
But you're really at point. I do think it's going to be years before we see another one.
Yeah.
This one's going to be an evergreen title, isn't it? It's just going to keep selling for years, I think.
Be at least 6 years, yeah.
I was
minimum,
gonna say,
I'd say.
Oh yeah. I was gonna say, obviously we've kind of, we've talked, and overwhelmingly it's very positive. But has anyone got any complaints about the game? Is there anything that you're disappointed? Obviously, Pedz has mentioned that you've lost the surprise of characters. But is there anything else that maybe is a little bit more negative? You think?
Aside from the online.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah,
the thing is,
online,
my favorite Smash game is it's still a bit up in the air. I haven't played it in a while because I've been like busy playing this game, but I still like gameplay wise maybe prefer Melee.
Yeah.
Huge for me saying maybe, but I think I still probably prefer Melee, but it's like it's not for everyone, that game anyway. And I mean this game it's definitely not bad.
No.
But there are some things I'd like more Melee like stuff, I guess, but
One thing I'm wondering,
this is a lot better than I was expecting.
in Melee, or Melee, or Millie,
Or Melee.
Molly.
there was the shield deflection. You had your hard shield, your soft shield, and then if you timed the shield right, if someone shot at you with an item or threw an item at you, you deflect it back at them. Is that in this? Because that is one thing that I'm disappointed that was removed from Melee.
Don't think you can reflect items anymore with a shield. No, like it works differently now. Like that feature was in other games, like deflecting stuff with your shield with like good timing. But now it's replaced with a parry. It's like kind of opposite. You let go of a shield at like that someone hits your shield. It's strange. I'm not really good at it myself. Like Jazzem seems to get
Hit and miss
a lot
at the
more than me.
moment,
I never do it intentionally, but it feels so good when when it happens. It's quite a thrill. We should, to your point, this is the most Melee-esque Smash Brothers since Melee.
Yeah, for sure. They added like directional air dodging, which hasn't been around since. But
Right,
like, but
sort of
offstage
that, and
games,
the pace of the game is very snappy in a very melee way.
right.
Is
It's also like less forgiving in some places. It's still very accessible, but yeah, it's a little harder, I guess.
I think I've often moaned about the lack of like a character will do a move and then they can do another one straight away. Like there's not always a lot of ending lag.
But yeah, I was gonna
And
say to you, Jazz, like, yeah, sometimes when I do like aerials, I time it in a way where I might even land without any lag, because it's called like
Right.
auto cancel. So
So
like,
I remember there being techniques on melee like that, right? That would stop any lag when you hit the
so
the
yeah,
ground.
you can half a lag by like pressing L or R.
Right, and that keeps
But
throwing me
yeah,
off.
this game, if you, well, like generally, if you land pretty late with an aerial, like there's no lag.
So I want to say I think Smash 4 was quite unforgiving in terms of you do an aerial. There's quite a bit of lag afterwards, so it's probably me having to rewire my brain from that. I think you get quite a few because, as you say, dodges are so different from that game, and they're more like melees now. So I've got to figure that out as well.
Yeah.
It's funny because all these games are so similar superficially, but there are little minute differences that add up. Like it'd be weird going back to play Brawl after this, for instance. It would feel very different to this.
Yeah, definitely. I still think this game is still a lot like Smash 4 in some ways, but it's definitely its own thing.
The one thing for me that I was disappointed that didn't make an appearance is like my favorite mini game, which was the home run game. I love that game.
I know, it's
Fact
not
that
here
they
for the
didn't
first
include that.
time, yeah.
They're missing quite a few in this, aren't they?
And bearing in mind this is meant to be the ultimate version, you would have thought like, come
They've
on.
removed home run to add in the sandbag as a character.
Oh, that'd be adorable. That'd be
Sandbag gets revenge, and it'll be called Sandbag Revenge. And basically, every time you load up home run mode, because it'll come in DLC, you as Sandbag, you can only play as Sandbag, get to launch different characters every time you load it up.
That'd be
That'd
amazing.
be cool. I'd love that.
Would be...
The thing is, according to Sandbag's trophy description, it likes getting hit. It's like a reverse nervous system. Like, I don't think
No,
it
no,
minds.
no.
So
I think
hang on, so it
what
feels
happened.
pain when it
Yeah,
doesn't
it's a
get
bit
hit.
weird, but I don't want to kink shame. That's up to Sandbag.
No, no.
But...
I don't think it's. I think what has happened is after the very first game, after the first few times he was hit by the nasty people who were keeping him there, he got Stockholm syndrome, and now loves the people who hit him.
An innocent reading from this, and you guys just holy shit! I thought it was some straight, but fuck.
Poor Sandbag.
Oh man.
Poor Sandbag. Justice for Sandbag. Also,
It
where's
doesn't
Wire?
retroactively ruin this mode for you, I hope too.
Where's Wireframe
yeah.
Man?
I'm never gonna
Polygon
be able to hit him.
Another thing that I would like is a smash the targets mode that is like melee, not
yes.
like the later games, because
But yeah, you get your own like custom stage for
exactly, I can understand why it hasn't been done. There's 70 characters, so it would be a lot of work, but I want them. I want my fucking custom bloody levels.
Maybe DLC thing.
Yeah, maybe we'll get like one for 50 pence or something.
That would be funny. Yeah.
That's the thing. You unlock characters in that game. I think it was like a specific trophy with that by getting under a certain amount of time with for each character in Smash the Target, as well as getting one for getting a lower amount of under a certain time, a cumulative between all the characters. So it's like you need to have under say 2 minutes between every character.
Oh yes.
Things like that. That was fun. Now it's just, I know every character, so I don't care.
I haven't tried it yet. Multi-man melee is in this one, right? Or whatever it's called.
Yeah, I haven't played it yet either. No.
Is that going to be typical? Like, there's the 100-man one, there's the cruel one.
Pretty much, yeah.
99 people will fall down, and then as the last person comes down, it'll be Giga Bowser.
Instant KO. But I mean, did it seem fine when you tried it too? Did it seem as it was like in previous games?
Yeah, it's all there. It's all fun, and smashing CPU left, right, and center. It's all about.
You can't
That's
down
good,
beat
that's
in the middle of a stage. They all just fall and get killed
Yeah.
straight away.
Just out of interest, like obviously, you know, there'll be a lot of people who maybe never played Melee and kind of started later on, but generally, you know, if you take it's generally accepted still that Melee is the ultimate. It is the ultimate Smash. It's the one that's used at most competitions. It's the kind of complete game. Would have, like, obviously they've released this game and it's the most, and again it shows how good that game was because they've tried focusing this game as very Melee-esque. Why, just out of interest, why do you think they haven't just straight ported Melee and just they could have let's be honest, they could have straight ported Melee with, you know, just higher res graphics and all the usual, but keep the exact same mechanics, keep everything the same, even the character list, you could pretty much keep that the same, just straight port it over, and people would have loved it. Like,
I'm not sure about that, honestly.
I
think
don't
it'd be harder to
know.
sell to casuals. It'd be hard to sell to casuals because they'd be like, oh, why are there less characters all of a sudden? Why is it hard to play?
A very vocal group would have loved it, but not a 10 plus million group.
Yeah, it would have probably been a minority group.
I would like a Melee HD, but I understand why there's another Smash game too. So I'd like both ideally, but yeah, that's my thought.
Why don't they? What, like, again, Nintendo have obviously know that Melee's the one that generally, the community, especially the competitive community, kind of considers the best. Why don't they just use those mechanics and just?
I suppose it's Sakurai there that mainly does that. Maybe he wants to try changing things up to try and improve on the game. Maybe certain physics that were around in Melee won't be quite right for some of the characters and assist trophies and various items. So there's probably a lot of behind the scenes things that we don't know about that may have needed to be changed. Though tripping and the unbelievable slowness of Brawl were two things that didn't need to be done. Tripping especially. I don't know what he was thinking other than, I don't want to make any more Smash games. Let's do this so they stop asking me. And then they carried on asking him anyway. And now he's, I know, probably aged about 300 years in the last couple of weeks.
That man needs a vacation. He really does.
Melee's held in very high regard, maybe even more so than like later games. Smash 4 also, like, it gets comparable numbers, spectator numbers, so it's still like a very popular, like almost as popular as Melee, even at some points like more popular, like during its life. It's strange.
Thing I'm thinking
it's gonna drop off now, that Ultimate. Like, Melee's always gonna be the
down.
Melee's gonna be the constant, isn't there, at tournaments, but Ultimate will.
I think Ultimate will be beating Melee for a while at least. I think.
Yeah. The thing is there were things that were taken from Melee and dropped. Like, wasn't wave dashing taken out?
Yeah, and it's kind of back in now because of directional air dodging. It's not quite the same, but yeah, like.
No, there's a few things that they removed, which I assume from a depth perspective when it comes to fighting, the fighting community are gonna prefer. But for someone like me and who is just casually into fighting games, it may not have as big an impact. So
yeah, for sure. Yeah. That's fair.
Smash does need to appeal to a broad audience. I mean, it does inherently. The thing is, there's a bit of a cautionary tale in my beloved Street Fighter V, which seemingly did mainly go for the tournament audience. Like, it was promoted through that, and apparently its release was kind of.
It was.
I heard the opposite though, Jazz. Like, honestly, I heard that they made a lot of things like easier.
Well, okay, so they did in some ways, but I think the thing is, I understand it came out quite early for it to be featured at a tournament, and that's so it came out with a pretty threadbare list of features. There wasn't a proper arcade mode, notoriously. There weren't that many characters. So
there was
I think
about it.
Yeah, it was one of those kind of cases where you know how a bad launch can be very hard to escape from. I think 355 has been fighting that pun.
Yeah,
intended.
it's a
It's
shame,
been
really.
fighting that battle ever since.
Yeah, it's a shame, really, because there are other games as well that, like Drive Club, for example. That game is. I don't like racing games very much unless it's something like Mario Kart, but that game is brilliant. It's a genuinely great game, but because of the launch screwed it, and even got the company that made the game shut down.
Yeah.
So it goes to show, like, that I can understand. The problem you've got is the like Sony then closed them down because the games weren't doing as well, but then it's like people should realize that nowadays things do get updated to be better, and if they'd kept tabs on it because they were interested before, they could have heard that it was actually improved and sorted, so they could have cracked on. But I guess the problem is like people to say, oh, because the it's all about how the shareholders are not getting what they want within within a week. It just goes to show that gamers themselves will only show interest in the game for a certain amount of time, and if within that week is crap, they'll just move on to another game. So we're just as bad as the shareholders, though we don't close companies. So
Well, the
not that
problem
bad.
is there's so many choices for entertainment. So
Exactly.
if you want to get the broad audience, you've got to get it day one with a big marketing push. And if all the buzz around your game is that there aren't enough features for most players, who want more characters, who want those kind of features, there's always going to be that's going to kind of stick. And then by the time you fix it, they're looking elsewhere anyway because you don't have the marketing muscle that you have.
Fallout 76.
I heard that.
Right, yeah.
I heard that Marvel versus Capcom like Infinite. I hear like gameplay wise, it's actually very similar to like DBZF, but like that had a very bad impression first of all because
I've played both.
The style is very strange, isn't it? Like the graphical style of the characters don't look right.
It looks very cheap.
I've played both of them, and my opinion on Marvel vs. Capcom 4 is okay to play. My opinion on Dragon Ball FighterZ is it's very good to play. But then I played it a couple of months after launch, maybe. Marvel vs. Capcom 4. And it was okay. The story was a bit crap, and I didn't play it online because I don't really play fighters online because I'm crap. But it's also the problem with games like Marvel vs. Capcom is they are pretty deep mechanic-wise for me. So I tend to have not played them a lot because I'll get frustrated after about 10 minutes and throw the game out the window. So there you go.
It was a good example to bring up, Kriken, because that's probably even more so a case of this where, like, pretty obviously, not particularly high production value, which in a game that's meant to be flashy and broadly appealing, that's going to be an issue. And that game sank like a stone, despite, as you say, actually being pretty well regarded mechanically. But again, like that's even. I mean, Street Fighter 5 is still kind of going on, even if I think it's a relatively small audience. Marvel is just dead in the water, and again, to bring this back a little bit, I suppose that might be where Sakurai sees this. Where, I mean, they are trying to push the tournament aspects of this, like they did that quite a lot at E3. They do seem to be kind of trying to, I think maybe for good PR and also just to kind of have good word of mouth, they want to court that, but they still want to sell this to a broad audience, so they are still going to.
Didn't they do the same with Smash 4? They have a tournament at E3, and Zelda Williams was there with the Majora's Mask.
I think she was at this one as well. I'm pretty sure she.
Because everyone was like, "Oh my god, she's going to announce Majora's Mask for 3DS," and she didn't. Which did come out like about a year later anyway, but maybe it was like a subtle hint. Well, not really that subtle either, but because there used to be the adverts with Robin Williams and Zelda talking about the Zelda games and how he named his daughter after the Zelda character from the games because he was such a fan of the games. So,
rest his soul.
Right, guys. I don't know about you, but I'm getting to the stage now where I do have to think about shooting off. I got work in the morning. I got to be up early. If you guys want to carry on chatting,
I think
I'm
it's a
happy.
good place to call it. I appreciate you adding structure to this, actually, Doom. You've done very well on that. With probing questions here and there. It's been very good way to structure this, I think. And then to call it to a close here. I think it's a good time.
I think if we just general sum up Smash Ultimate, how well, even better, how would you sum up Smash Ultimate in, a sentence?
It's a lot better than Smash Wii U. So if you like Smash Wii U, then definitely get this game because it's a lot better than that. That's what I'd say.
It's like the PlayStation Classic, but not bad. Completely different, in fact. And very good. There we go.
To sum up Smash Ultimate, I have nothing funny to say other than it is very, very good. And those who like Smash will like this Smash. And if they don't like this Smash, then they're idiots.
Pedz, say something about Rainbow Six. Get one more in there.
Oh, and also, they probably like Rainbow Six on the PlayStation Classic. Because they're idiots.
Oh, that's
going back to the going all the way back to the PlayStation Classic. Why Rainbow Six?
Credulity.
You idiots! I bet they were like, oh, Ubisoft, please let us put Rayman on the PlayStation Classic. They're like, okay, we'll put it on so long as you put this on. And so we're like, okay, we'll do it. No, you are a bitch. That didn't sound very French, because they French.
You know what I think it is? We're like, development on this isn't going very well. We need something to distract everybody from all the problems. How about this game?
They're like cutting your leg off so your earache doesn't hurt as much.
Yeah.
Hey, I remember.
Yeah,
Let's have a look through what it probably
Rainbow
was.
Six, it's like amputation.
They probably looked through old magazines at good rated games and say, oh, Rainbow Six was rated really highly. They decided to try and get it, not really realizing they were reading a PC magazine.
Probably, yeah.
Alright then, guys, we're going to end the podcast here as Doom has to go to bed and Jazzem and Kriken are probably going to go play Smash Brothers, and I'm going to go to bed as well because I'm a lazy fat bum. Anyway, everyone can say ta-ra, and we shall see you later.
Bye.
Goodbye.
Ta-da.
Bye, guys. Thank you for stopping in. Don't forget to check out grcade.co.uk and yeah, have fun. Go play with yourself. Bye.
Let's go. I don't like editor.
I can't edit this. It's a live video thing that goes straight to YouTube.
What? Whose idea was this?
Yours. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.